The penthouse of the Sterling Tower was a monument to my success. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city that had made me, the city I had conquered. The Italian marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The walls were adorned with original masterpieces I had purchased at auctions where I had outbid kings and sheiks. Julian Sterling, the self-made billionaire who had clawed his way from nothing to the pinnacle of the financial world, stood at the center of my empire, wearing a custom Armani suit and feeling like a god. My wife, Clara, was in the kitchen. She was cooking dinner. Again, she was always cooking dinner or cleaning or doing something mundane and domestic that reminded me of where she came from. A small-town girl from the middle of nowhere, the daughter of a mechanic and a schoolteacher. My father had forced me into this marriage 5 years ago, back when my company was on the verge of collapse, and her father, a man I had never met, had offered a mysterious bailout. The terms were simple. Marry his daughter, and he would make my problems disappear. I had agreed, but I had resented it from day one. Clara was sweet, kind, and utterly unremarkable. She never wore designer clothes, never attended my galas, never made any demands. She was content to stay home, read books, and smile at me with those earnest, hopeful eyes. I despised her for it. She was a constant reminder of my weakness, of the deal I had made to save my company. I wanted a wife who was glamorous, sophisticated, a trophy who would enhance my reputation, not a mousy little homemaker who couldn't even hold a conversation about stock options. I had been seeing someone else for 2 years, Victoria Ashford, the daughter of a British lord, a woman who moved through high society like a shark through water. She was everything Clara wasn't. Ambitious, ruthless, and exquisitely beautiful. She wore diamonds like they were costume jewelry and laughed at my jokes even when they weren't funny. She was also the head of the legal department at my biggest rival's company, and she had been feeding me insider information for months. IT was a risky game, but the rewards were immense. Tonight, I was going to end it, and I was going to divorce Clara and marry Victoria. And I had already drafted the papers, and I had already transferred our joint assets into my name. Clara would walk away with nothing but the clothes on her back. IT was the least she deserved for being such a pathetic wife. I walked into the kitchen. Clara was at the stove, stirring a pot of soup. She was wearing a simple floral dress, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked up at me and smiled. That same hopeful, trusting smile that made my skin crawl. Julian, dinner will be ready in 10 minutes. I made your favorite chicken noodle soup. I'm not hungry, I said flatly. Sit down. We need to talk. Her smile faltered. She wiped her hands on her apron and sat at the kitchen table. I stood over her, looking down at her with all the contempt I could muster. Clara, this marriage has been a mistake from the beginning, I said. I never wanted to marry you. You're a liability, a burden, a constant reminder of the worst decision I ever made. I've met someone else, someone who actually belongs in my world. I'm filing for divorce. You'll have 72 hours to pack your things and leave. I've already had the lawyers prepare the papers. Sign them, and you can go quietly. Clara stared at me. Her eyes were wide, but there were no tears. No sulk. Nothing. Just a strange, unsettling calm. Julian, she said, her voice quiet but steady, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything, I said. I'll have my assistant wire you $50,000. That's more than generous, considering you contributed nothing to this marriage. Now sign the papers and get out of my sight. She nodded slowly. She reached for the papers, but she didn't sign them. Instead, she looked up at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was cold, calculating, almost amused. Julian, she said, when my father offered to bail out your company, he made me promise something. He said that if you ever tried to leave me, I would have the right to reclaim everything you had stolen from my family. Do you know who my father is? I laughed. Your father? A mechanic from a small town? Don't make me laugh, Clara. Your family is nobody. Clara pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen, and a video began to play. IT was a press conference from 5 years ago, the day my company was saved. A man was speaking to the press. A man I had never seen before. He was older, with silver hair and cold, hard eyes. He was introduced as Marcus Vance, CEO of Vance Holdings. Vance Holdings was a shadow conglomerate, one of the most powerful and secretive financial institutions in the world. IT was worth more than my company, my rivals, and half the country combined. Marcus Vance is my father, Clara said. He made me swear never to tell you, because he wanted to see if you would love me for who I am, not for my money. You failed, Julian. You failed spectacularly. The bailout was structured as a loan, and that loan has a clause. If you ever initiated a divorce, the entire debt would become due immediately, and the collateral, your company, would revert to Vance Holdings. I have all the paperwork. It's ironclad. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed the phone, but she pulled it away. She stood up, suddenly taller, more imposing. I knew you would do this, she said. I knew you would try to humiliate me and discard me the moment you thought I was worthless. I prepared. I have been preparing for years. I have documentation of your insider trading, your embezzlement, your affair with Victoria Ashford, and your conspiracy to steal proprietary information from your rivals. I have enough evidence to put you in prison for the rest of your life, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you walk away with nothing. She walked to the door. She didn't look back. You have 72 hours to pack your things, Julian, she said. This is my home now, and you are no longer welcome. The days that followed were a waking nightmare. The press was relentless. Sterling Heir loses everything in bitter divorce. Billionaire reduced to pauper. Clara Vance reveals secret inheritance. My name was M.U.D. M-Life friends abandoned me. Victoria Ashford, my beloved mistress, dropped me like a hot potato the moment she realized I had no money. I tried to fight the divorce, but the courts were merciless. The contracts were ironclad. I had lost everything. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in a rundown part of town. I couldn't afford my old lifestyle, couldn't even afford a card. I started looking for work, but no one would hire me. My reputation was destroyed, that I was a pariah, a laughingstock. Months passed. I was forced to take a job as a janitor at a high school just to keep the lights on. I scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, cleaned up after children who had no idea who I used to be. I looked in the mirror every morning and saw a hollow shell of a man, a shadow of my former self. But the worst part was seeing Clara. She was everywhere, on magazine covers, on television, on billboards. She had taken over my company and transformed it into a global powerhouse. She had remarried a kind, successful man who adored her. She was happy, radiant, thriving. She had everything I had thrown away. One night, I was sitting in a dimly lit bar, nursing a cheap beer, when she walked in. She was with her husband, laughing at something he had said. She saw me across the room. Her expression didn't change. She simply walked toward me. Julian, she said, it's been a while. Clara, I said, my voice cracking. I need to talk to you. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was a fool. I was arrogant. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Please, can we talk? I'm begging you. She looked at me with those cold, gray eyes. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something, not pity, not forgiveness, but a quiet finality. Julian, she said, you made your choice. You chose greed over loyalty. You chose ambition over love. You chose a woman who would never have loved you over a woman who would have given you everything. You don't get to come back now. Begging for crumbs, dear cautionary tale, a lesson for other men who think they can treat women like stepping stones. Goodbye, Julian. She turned and walked away as I called after her. But she didn't look back as I sat in the bar, alone, the tears streaming down my face. I had lost everything. MY company, MY money, MY reputation, MY dignity. And the only woman who had ever truly loved me. Years passed. I remained a janitor, stuck in a dead-end life. I never recovered. I never remarried. I spent my nights replaying every moment of my marriage, every cruel word, every dismissive glance. I thought about Clara's smile, her kindness, her unwavering loyalty, and I realized that I had been the villain all along, that I had been given the greatest gift in the world, and I had thrown it away. One day, I was cleaning a classroom at the high school when I saw a familiar face on a news broadcast. It was Clara being interviewed about her latest philanthropic project. She was donating millions to build schools in impoverished neighborhoods. She was using Myempire to make the world a better place. And I was scrubbing graffiti off a desk. I sank to my knees, sobbing. The janitor's mop clattered to the floor. I felt the weight of my mistakes crushing me. I had been such a fool, such an arrogant, entitled fool, and there was no going back. I looked up at the screen, at Clara's face, and I whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But she couldn't hear me. And even if she could, it wouldn't have mattered. Because I had destroyed everything we could have had. I had destroyed myself.